We're in the storage rooms looking at some paintings from the collection of the Art Bridges Foundation. And at this moment, we're standing in front of a large painting by Martin Wong. He who wins loses.
This quote comes from a play written by Miguel Piñero called Short Eyes, which was written from Piñero's own experiences in prison.
So Piero and Wong are both living on the Lower East Side in this largely impoverished Hispanic neighborhood.
The Lower East Side, known as Loisaida within the Puerto Rican communities, was undergoing a lot of changes. There were a lot of abandoned buildings, tenements. Martin Wong described how there were burning cars in abandoned lots. And so he really wanted to capture the reality of the area in his paintings. And so he painted many urban landscapes during his time in Loisaida.
He actually says, I painted what I saw, and everything that I painted was in a 4-block radius of where he lived.
And it's also really important to point out the lower left corner where we see a figure looking back into the buildings as he runs the opposite direction. He's running into the unknown. He's running towards the outer frame, and we don't know what exactly lies beyond that. But when we look at his gaze, there are buildings that are lit up, whereas there are also 2 buildings where the windows are dark. They seem abandoned.
All of these buildings so densely packed together, all of these lives lived so close to one another, and this curiosity that at least I always have about what's going on behind those windows.
The viewer is directly confronted with a chain link fence. It's completely locked, and the figure stands on the other side of the fence as well. And so we are outside of the boundaries, not only by the frame, but by a fence. And so there's different levels of accessibility that we are confronted with. The chain links on the fence are interestingly created by very specific, intentionally placed dots. And he's still playing with the light, especially as we look at the white highlights on these dots. And they almost mimic the stars.
Each brick so meticulously painted, its edges so clearly visible. And then at the same time, these areas that are much more painterly. For example, the leftmost building, which seems to have windows that are illuminated. We really see the thickness of the paint, giving us in a way a sense of the different textures of the city itself.
And this painting is so angular with the outlines of the buildings and with the straight lines connecting the constellations. But when we look into the buildings, the lines aren't angular, they're curved. There's also curvature in bricks themselves. And so there is still a sense of fluidity within these structured containments.
For all the regularity, there is also a sense of movement, of shifting.
And it makes me think of how Martin Wong navigated his own life. He was an openly queer man operating within this larger heteronormative society, but there's ways of survival, there's ways of movement.
He's second-generation Chinese American living in this largely Puerto Rican neighborhood.
Martin Wong was constantly curious. He was very open to learning about different cultures and different modes of speaking. He often included American Sign Language into his paintings.
I almost feel like there's some investigation into systems like the constellations that we see in the sky, where they provide a language in a way for the universe.
Wong gathered a lot of different influences. He grew up in San Francisco. He did not speak Chinese, but was very familiar with the Chinese landscape paintings all the way to Persian manuscripts. And so he's gathering all of this information, directly influencing his work.
Well, what's so interesting is that he's absorbing all of these artistic influences, but he also says, I'm painting what I see. In a way, he's trying to drain the art out of it. Looking back perhaps to the early 20th century American artists, the social realists.
And he really centers that, especially if we look at the frame, he includes the line from the play, he includes the specific location of this painting alongside the month and year this was painted, and the title at the very bottom center. So this is a specific moment and a specific place that he's capturing.
We've also been given our location by the constellations in the sky. And so we are really situated.
Martin Wong loves this place. He made it his home and figured out how to navigate such a complicated space on his own terms.